My sister! What did you do to my sister? The woman wailed as she came at Gessie. Seeing a set of lethal-looking fingernails at the end of the arm preparing to take a swipe at her face, Gessie didn't hesitate. She just reacted, using one of the moves Dax had taught her. She grabbed the woman's wrist and used her momentum to turn her around, pinning her arm against her back. Gessie forced the woman to walk a few steps away from where her sister was lying. Stop. Just stop. Your sister needs help. I found her like this. We need to call an ambulance. That seemed to get through to the woman. She stopped trying to fight Gessie and turned back toward her sister, but she didn't make a move to go over to her. Instead, she stood stock still and just stared down at her sister. Seeing the woman was going to be no help, Gessie went over to where she had dropped her tote. She picked it up, pulled out her cell phone, and dialed 911. Please hurry, Gessie pleaded as she ended the call with the emergency dispatcher. Kendra's sister hadn't moved. Gessie wondered if she was in shock or something, but she wasn't going to worry about it just then. Instead, she brushed past her and knelt again by Kendra. She took her hand and held it as she told Kendra to hold on and help was on the way. Gessie continued to hold Kendra's hand and talk with her until she heard sirens. She got up and went over to the door to let in who she hoped was the ambulance crew. She was sure the police would also show up, but it was the medical attention Kendra needed now. Figuring out what had happened was second to that. She was relieved to see it was the ambulance that had arrived. After she motioned them inside and pointed them toward Kendra, she decided she'd better let Dax know what was going on. Knowing he was in some kind of conference, she decided to text him. Found Kendra hurt. Called 911. Ambulance here. Gessie wasn't too surprised at Dax's reply. Most people would have texted back asking what had happened. Dax wasn't most people, however. His text simply said, I'm on my way. As Gessie slipped her cell phone back into her tote, she turned to see one of the EMS techs look up at Kendra's sister and shake his head. I'm sorry, he said, and then he looked toward Gessie, probably to tell her the same thing. That seemed to bring Kendra's sister out of what Gessie had thought was almost a catatonic state. The woman went right back into her screaming, shrieking mode and came at Gessie again. You did this! You killed my sister! Gessie was saved from having to use another move on the woman because 2 police officers came through the door at just that moment. One of them stepped in between Gessie and the woman. The other officer stood behind the woman, taking hold of her arms. I got her, Cal, the second officer said over the woman shouting. I'll talk to her outside and can keep an eye out for the doc. As the protesting woman was led outside, the officer who had saved Gessie from another attack told her he wanted her to sit at the table in the kitchenette area. Gessie did as she had been instructed. It gave her a chance to take a better look around the room. She noticed a set of drums, several guitars, the keyboard, amps, various stands, a few other musical instruments and equipment. Something tugged at her memory as her eyes passed over an empty keyboard stand, but she was distracted when she noticed one of the EMS technicians pointing over to her. The officer nodded at the EMS tech and then spoke into his comm as he started walking toward Gessie. Because she had been around Dax, she knew what the officer was saying, even though he was using codes. He was asking for a detective and the coroner. That told her they didn't think Kendra had landed on the floor by accident.